Hurricane season is now a week old, but it has a lot of life left ahead of it. It runs all the way through the end of November. Here's the basics. The peak activity in the Atlantic Hurricane Basin typically comes in the first couple weeks of September. But for the Lone Star State, the historically greatest number of hurricane and major hurricane landfalls has come in the month of August. Trying to get a feel for hurricane season ahead of time, not easy to do, but if you ask any entity that says what we're going to expect later this season, they all say it's going to be downright destructive. On average, we get 14 named storms, 7 of those being hurricanes on any given season. The National Hurricane Center, NOAA, forecasting almost double those numbers. 25 named storms, 13 hurricanes. Colorado State, another big forecaster, not far behind, with 11 hurricanes expected this season. Couple of big factors at play that are leading to this really energetic forecast. First, I want to talk about hurricanes and how they evolve. They are heat engines. They are fueled by warm ocean waters. That's their gas tank. The warmer the water, the higher the octane of the fuel. This is all transferred into a hurricane on either side of the eye of a storm via the spiral rain bands. That's where moisture condenses, heat is released, and a storm can intensify, sometimes quite a bit, if the conditions are right. If you add something called wind shear into the mix, which is winds that change speed and direction with height, the storm can get disorganized, tilted, even torn apart entirely, and may not even form to begin with. That brings me to our first big factor in this hurricane season ahead, and that is the transition away from El Nino to La Nina. We're still in El Nino, but only by a thread. We'll likely get into La Nina conditions by the time we're getting into hurricane season. On average, that keeps the jet stream a little bit farther towards the north in the northern hemisphere, keeps us hotter and drier locally in the Lone Star State, but it also leads to less wind shear in the tropical Atlantic. That means storms are more likely to get started and more likely to stay organized, which brings me to our very important second point. The sea surface temperatures are on fire right now. The Atlantic, the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, all at the hottest they have ever been this early in the year. As we get into hurricane season, that leads to the higher potential for how strong a storm can be, also increases the odds of explosive intensification on final approach to mainland USA. That's the bad news. The good news potentially is that if we got to deal with a hurricane, at least we could get the benefits of the rain it produces. Lake Buchanan at the top of the chain of Highland Lakes has done really well this season. The tributaries that lead down to Lake Travis, though, not nearly as beneficial. 42% full, struggling. If we get a hurricane into Texas, this could be a benefit later this season.
Thank you for watching. Please hit the subscribe button and get the latest news by downloading the CBS Austin News app.